Here are 15 of the most expensive items on PawnStars. From several hundred thousand to even a couple of million, these items are surely not for everyone. Number 15. JFK's Cigar Box. In 2013, a customer came into the gold and silver pawn shop carrying a humidor and a handful of unsmoked cigars. It turned out that this seemingly ordinary cigar box once belonged to none other than President John F. Kennedy himself. In fact, it actually sat on JFK's desk in the Oval Office during his time in the White House. The customer had a hunch about its value, and the owner of the shop, Rick, knew he was onto something special. This small walnut humidor was gifted to JFK by the legendary comedian Milton Berle for his inauguration in 1961. Given its historical significance, the customer initially asked for a cool $95,000. But after some negotiation, they agreed to a still impressive $60,000 offer from the shop. That might seem like a hefty price tag for a cigar box, but wait till you hear this. Another one of JFK's humidors was sold at a prestigious Sotheby's auction in 1996. This rare piece was sold at a mind-boggling $575,000. So it's safe to say that the Pawn Star crew may have made quite a savvy investment. Although this item had a huge price tag, even though it was small in size, the next one was way larger, but still pretty unique. Number 14. 2014 Hertz-Penske GT Mustang. The 2014 Hertz-Penske GT Mustang is a true gem, with only 150 of them ever rolling off the production line. And guess what? The first 10 Mustangs were exclusively reserved for Hertz VIPs and top executives, making it an exclusive club of automobile excellence. What made the GT Mustang even more special was its unique feature, a 6-speed manual transmission. It was the only one of its kind, adding an extra thrill to the driving experience. To truly test its limits, Rick brought in NASCAR driver Joey Logano, who took this beast for a spin on the iconic Las Vegas NASCAR track. Given its exceptional rarity and impressive performance, it's no wonder that the 2014 Hertz-Penske GT Mustang became an object of desire. Joey estimated its value at around $75,000, and negotiations kicked off at that price point. However, Rick, being the pro negotiator he is, stood his ground with a solid $60,000 offer. After some back and forth, Rick didn't budge and sealed the deal at $60,000. Cars may not be the usual items on PawnStars, but this 2014 Hertz-Penske GT Mustang was worth every penny. Some would consider this a treasure in the car world, but this next one was an actual treasure. Number 13. 1915 Panama Pacific Octagonal Gold Coin. Rick is not one to sit around the shop all day waiting for cool items to come to him. In fact, he takes road trips to seek out extraordinary pieces, which he then sells to his trusted private buyers. One such adventure led him to the Florida Coin Show in search of the elusive 1915 Panama Pacific Octagonal Gold Coin. The 1915 Panama Pacific Octagonal Gold Coin held a special place in history, as it was minted by the United States to commemorate the grand opening of the Panama Canal during the Panama Pacific International Exposition in 1915. What made this coin even more intriguing was its distinctive octagonal shape. Rick's persistence paid off when he managed to locate not just one, but two of these extraordinary coins. Negotiating with the owner, he showcased his skills and convinced them to lower the selling price from $70,000 to a more agreeable $67,050. The deal was sealed, and Rick brought the coveted coin back to be sold to a buyer he already had lined up. There was another item from that era, originally priced at $400, that made an entrance on the show. Yet by then, its price had surpassed even the rarest Pacific gold coin. Number 12. 1932 Custom Ford Roadster. Now, let's talk about the jaw-dropping 1932 Custom Ford Roadster that made its way to PawnStars. This stunning matte black roadster caught the attention of Rick and Corey Harrison when a client invited them over to discuss selling it. The owner had poured a lot of love and money into this classic beauty, spending around $140,000 over 3 years to customize it. However, personal reasons forced him to part ways with the Roadster. Rick and Corey engaged in a tough negotiation to secure this rare gem. They negotiated back and forth until they struck a deal, managing to purchase the Roadster for $68,250. Back in the 1930s, you could have bought this car for only $400. Times sure have changed. Now, this magnificent roadster has found a new home on PawnStars, capturing the attention of car enthusiasts far and wide. It's a fascinating journey of how a car with a rich history and stunning looks became a prized possession on the show. But sometimes, it's the simplest things that steal the show, outshining even the rarest of items. Number 11. Jimi Hendrix Guitar. Once, a long-haired seller set foot in the gold and silver pawn shop. He claimed to own one of Jimi Hendrix's electric guitars. Hearing this, Rick Harrison could not contain his excitement, declaring it the coolest guitar ever if it was truly played by the legend himself. To confirm its authenticity, Rick brought in local guitar expert named Jesse Amoroso. He examined the '63 Olympic white Fender Stratocaster and confirmed it had all the telltale signs of being played by Hendrix. There were scuff marks from his rough strumming, along with historic photos, documents, and a matching serial number. Amoroso estimated its worth to be a jaw-dropping $1 million if sold at auction. With his heart set on owning the musical treasure, Rick made an offer of $450,000. However, the seller had grander expectations, seeking $750,000 for the guitar. Rick raised his offer to $600,000, hoping to strike a deal, but unfortunately, the seller walked away. It was a missed opportunity to acquire Jimi Hendrix's iconic guitar, but reminding us that even prized possessions have their price limits. Number 10. 1922 High Relief Dollar. In an episode of PawnStars, a rare and valuable item took center stage: the 1922 High Relief Proof Coin. This stunning silver dollar had collectors and enthusiasts buzzing with excitement. A coin expert joined Rick and the seller to examine the coin, revealing that it was one of the rarest coins in American history. He confirmed its legitimacy as one of the few known specimens. But it was the expert's valuation that dropped the jaws. Rather than quoting a mere $50 to $100, he placed the coin's worth between an astonishing $50,000 and $100,000. Fans on Twitter could not help but marvel at the staggering value, realizing that this single coin had the potential to pay off student loans and more. The rarity of the 1922 high relief dollar became even clearer when Rick mentioned that there were only 10 to 12 of these coins in existence. The seller claimed that they had won the coin in a poker game, so no doubt he had no idea of its true worth. Initially, he sought a modest price of $20,000 for the coin. However, as Rick and the experts evaluated its true worth, they determined that the coin's value far exceeded that estimate. In the end, Rick agreed to pay $80,000 to secure this extremely rare and highly sought-after item. But rare coins are not the only sought-after items. They can be old relics too, and have their names attached to popular figures. Number 9. 1941 Gibson SJ200 Guitar. Thanks to the fame of rock legend Stephen Stills of Crosby, Stills & Nash, another famous guitar made its way onto the list of extraordinary finds at the gold and silver pawn shop. The guitar in question was a stunning 1941 Gibson SJ200, a rare vintage gem that had been used by Stephen Stills during his time rocking out with his bandmates. The vendor proudly presented a certified bill of sale, personally signed by Stephen himself, adding more authenticity to this incredible find. The Harrisons, always eager to seize extraordinary opportunities, quickly struck a deal with the owner. They agreed at $85,000, recognizing the immense value tied to Stephen Stills' ownership and the guitar's rarity. The significance of the instrument did not go unnoticed. Jesse, the local guitar expert, marveled at the beauty of the Gibson and even shared his admiration with the owner. Its standalone value was estimated at a jaw-dropping $75,000, but the connection to Stephen Stills added an extra $20,000 to its worth. Negotiations took place, with the seller initially seeking $90,000. However, Rick's bargaining skills led to a final agreement of $85,000. The next entry is also a guitar, but this one was associated with a different legend. Number 8. 1961 Gibson SG Les Paul Guitar. Les Paul, a legendary name in the guitar and rock music world, not only designed electric guitars, but also achieved fame alongside his wife, Mary Ford. Their albums sold in the millions, and they became renowned for using the very guitars Les Paul himself created. One day, a buyer arrived at the gold and silver pawn shop, clutching the custom-built 1961 Gibson Les Paul guitar, originally crafted as a gift from Les Paul to Mary. The audacious demand? A staggering $250 grand. The Gibson Les Paul guitars already carried a significant price tag, but when connected to the renowned songwriter and bearing Mary Ford's association, its value skyrocketed. It looked like an impossible task to make a deal, but the Pawn Stars team never backed down from a challenge. These master negotiators managed to secure an astounding bargain, acquiring the legendary instrument for a mere $90,000. Number 7. 1932 Lincoln Roadster. The next one is a deal that Rick does not come across every day. So when Uncle Phil, the owner of a 1932 Lincoln Roadster, approached him, he could not contain his excitement. You see, Uncle Phil had acquired this beauty from a museum a few years back and had his heart set on a cool $100 grand for it. Now, it's no doubt a gorgeous ride, but Rick knew it might be a tough sell due to its niche market. Negotiations hit a snag until a brilliant idea popped up. Rick and Uncle Phil discussed the possibility of trading gold instead. Can you believe it? Rick was willing to give actual gold in exchange for this rare vintage vehicle. In the end, a deal was sealed at $95,000. That's right, a combination of the exquisite 1932 Lincoln Roadster and the shimmer of precious gold sealed the agreement. It was surely a big deal on the show, but not as expensive as the next one. Number 6. Robosaurus. The first one is Robosaurus. It was a colossal killer robot that had the incredible power to crush cars with its massive metal jaws. Just imagine having your very own giant metal monster. The price of this mechanical marvel was equally extraordinary as the product, a whopping $1 million. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The boys at the pawn shop had the chance to acquire Robosaurus, but guess what? They decided to pass on this mind-blowing opportunity. In other words, they let this colossal metal beast slip through their fingers. But here's a fun fact that will blow your mind even more. Robosaurus actually made an appearance in a 1989 TV pilot. It was about a cop with the superpower to transform his son's toy robot into a gigantic Avenger seeking righteous vengeance. How cool is that? This concept deserves a comeback. Since then, Robosaurus has gone on a rampage, crushing approximately 375 cars at monster truck shows all across the country. It has become a sensation, leaving audiences in awe of its incredible power. You've got to see it to believe it. The robot was cool, yeah, but imagine a piece of paper being sold for more than that. Number 5. The Beatles Contract. In the 9th season of Pawn Stars, a person walks into the iconic gold and silver pawn shop carrying a contract. But not just any contract. This one belonged to none other than the legendary Beatles. It was the original 1962 agreement signed by John, Paul, George, and Pete Best, along with their manager, Brian Epstein. Can you believe it? The Fab Four themselves. Now, let me break it down for you. The contract outlined the terms of their partnership and the percentage of future royalties. It also had their signatures etched on the paper, so it became clear that this contract was the real deal. Given its worth, the seller had their eyes set on a staggering $1 million for this priceless Beatles memorabilia. However, upon closer inspection, its true value was determined to be around $500,000. Rick, being the best negotiator, always ready to strike a deal, made a tempting offer of $350 grand to the seller. But unfortunately, it was not quite the outcome they had hoped for. The seller kept saying he wanted a whole million for the contract, not even a penny less. Even for the Beatles, Rick refused to pay such a huge sum. So, in the end, the seller decided to leave. He said that he would take his chances at an auction, hoping for a higher return on this extraordinary piece. In the end, the seller did sell the contract. The price was less than the seller's initial expectations, but it was still higher than what Rick was offering him. He sold the contract at an auction in London for a whopping $553,121. But as iconic as the Beatles contract is, it could not compare to the value of the actual treasure. Number 4. 3,000 ounces of silver. One day, a man named Jeff visited Harrison's pawn shop during its 6th season. Jeff had acquired an impressive stash of silver in the form of coins and bars, amounting to 3,000 ounces. He had been collecting this trove for years, since a time when silver prices were much lower. His father had told him to buy silver when he was young, and he did. Jeff entered the pawn shop with his trolley loaded with sacks of pure silver. And guess who was the most excited? Richard Harrison, or famously known as Old Man. He loved silver, so he had a keen eye for its authenticity. There was one large silver bar in the trolley that looked different. So Rick decided to test it using a nitric acid test. This test works simply. A small notch is filed into the metal and a drop of nitric acid is applied. If the metal is only plated silver, it will turn green, but if it's sterling or pure silver, a cloudy cream color appears. Upon applying the nitric acid to the bar, a milky cream color appeared, indicating that it was indeed genuine silver. Now all that was left was to make a deal for it. Jeff wanted to sell his silver for $115,000, but Rick and Richard could only give him $111,000 to make sure they could make some profit too. Jeff was a bit upset, but he didn't want to carry all the heavy silver to another place, so he agreed to the deal. It was one of the biggest deals ever in the pawn shop's history. But can you believe it? An old car was actually priced higher than these 300 ounces of silver. Number 3. The O.J. Simpson car chase car. Remember O.J. Simpson, the NFL star turned actor? In 1994, he became infamous when he was linked to the deaths of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman. Instead of surrendering, O.J. made a daring escape in a white Ford Bronco. This event, watched by nearly 95 million people worldwide, became one of the most notorious car chases in history. Fast-forwarding to an unexpected day at Rick Harrison's pawn shop, when that very Ford Bronco pulled in. The seller, claiming possession of this iconic car, hoped to make a deal. Can you imagine Rick's excitement as he hopped in for a test drive of this piece of history? But here's the catch. The seller wanted a whopping $1.25 million for it. Despite the vehicle's infamous past of unique status, the hefty price tag, cooped with its grim of history, made Rick think twice. Although he was initially thrilled, he ultimately had to pass on the offer. It was not the only time Rick had to let go of a tempting offer, even when it involved one of the rarest items. Number 2. George Washington's suit. In season 15 of Pawn Stars, an incredible relic appeared on an episode, a 3-piece suit that once belonged to none other than the first president of the United States, George Washington. This piece of clothing was not just an artifact, it was a snapshot of American history, remarkably preserved, despite being nearly 300 years old. The suit had been in a collector's possession for 21 years, and it had a rich history. Purchased at an auction in New York, it was handed down through Washington's family generations before ending up with the current owner. Authenticator Mark Hall Patton helped Rick in examining this priceless piece. Washington was known for his diligent attention to his appearance, always choosing to wear high-quality clothing. This particular suit, made of silk, was once a vibrant pink. Yeah, you heard that right. It was a bold fashion statement in the mid-18th century. The suit now looked a bit worn out today, but back then, it was the height of style. The seller believed such an iconic piece of history deserved a fitting price tag, a hefty $3 million. Despite Rick's attempts to negotiate the price down to $2.5 million, the seller wouldn't budge. So, for Rick, despite being one of the most remarkable finds in his career, this unique piece of history was just out of reach. But when it came to something Rick had a personal connection with, he did not hesitate to break records and pay the highest price ever. Number 1. Maurice Sendak Sketches. During the same season as the George Washington suit discovery, another special item made its way to Rick Harrison's pawn shop. A collector brought in original sketches from Maurice Sendak's much-loved children's book, Where the Wild Things Are. Rick was amazed by the drawings that reminded him of his childhood. He told the seller that it was the best book ever, and as a kid, he was so drawn to the pictures. Now, back to the rare drawings. The sketches were special because Sendak never sold copies of his artwork for this book, making these drawings a one-of-a-kind item. Before making an offer, Rick asked an art expert for advice. The expert said the sketches could sell for around $310,000. Using his amazing negotiation skills, Rick managed to get the collector to sell the sketches for $250,000. The purchase marked a big moment in the history of Pawn Stars. It became the highest priced item ever bought on the show and showed the true value of the much-loved book, Where the Wild Things Are.